Maasrot Perek Hey Mishnah Bet, the second Mishnah in the 5th chapter of Maasrot. We're going to continue talking about Kviyat Maaser. In the last Mishnah, we talked about if I moved a plant that had produce on it from one place to another, since I was going to replant it, therefore that was considered not Gemar Melachto, and therefore it's Patur, it's not Kovea for Maaser. Today we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about moving plants in order for the purpose of seed. Says the Mishnah, Oker lefet utzunono, turnips or radishes. I uproot the turnips or radishes, mitoch shelo, v'notech shelo toch shelo. I uproot my radishes or my plant, right? My radishes or my turnips from my own field, and I'm going to plant it in my own field. But in this case, it's lizera. I'm going to do it in order to do it for the seed. Therefore, I'm chayav. If I want to eat the turnip or the radish, I must first take off trumot u'masrot, mipnei shehu garnam. That's considered goren. Remember we learned that once it's in the goren v'yeker, once it's in the goren, once it's in the storehouse, then it's considered chayav, it's considered kovea for ma'asrot. What is unique about the seeds? So I actually, when I read this, I was like, hard to understand the Mishnah, because what do you use in order to plant turnips and radishes? And we're going to see in later Mishnayot, in Mishnah Chet, in the last Mishnah of the parak, don't you just plant turnips and radishes or pieces of them? And we also are, the answer is, so I did a little internet research, and the answer is no. Why would you uproot the lefet and the tzanon, the turnip and the radish, in order to replant it? So let's turn to our handy-dandy Wikipedia. Okay? The seeds of radishes grow in siliks, widely referred to as pods. I'll make it large. Okay? These are the pods of radishes. Who knew? Okay? Following flowering that happens when left to grow past their normal harvesting period. So what's interesting really is, so what would the farmer do? He plants the radishes in the field, and then he's harvesting the radishes. So he wants to replant the field. But if he wants to have seeds, he has to he has to leave the seeding radishes. So what does he do? It sounds like what the Mishnah says is they would take the radish, plant the completed radish that's ready to be eaten, but he doesn't want to eat it because he wants the plants to continue to flower. He wants to leave it past the normal gestation period in order to eat. So he takes and then he has a special patch that is going to grow for seed. Now it makes sense. Now our Mishnah makes sense. He's oker lefet utzunono mitoch shelo. He's uprooting the turnips and the radishes from the normal vegetable field, and he's going to notel the toch shelo lezera, and he's going to replant it in order for it to grow more flower because he needs the seeds. So in this case, chayab. Now he decides, you know what? I have enough radish seeds. I want to eat them. Can he eat it arai? No. He's chayav. He is obligated to take off trumot and maasrot. Mipnei shehu garnan, because that's considered goren. Says the Bartanura. In the case when I uproot for seeds, akiratam hu garnam. The akira is goren. She'enam goren acher litchaye b'maaser. There is no further production. It's not considered not complete for the purposes of maaser. Why? Dizaran patur mina maaser. If I'm using it for seed, it's patur for maaser. Dichtiv. It says because you take the produce mizera haaretz from zeraatz v'lo kol zera. And not all zera, because the Torah says mi zera, from the zera, not all zera. Prat the zirone gina she'enam nichalim. This is to exclude zirone gina, the produce of gina that are not eaten. Remember, because if I replant this radish, the radish itself is not going to be edible after it grows to flower. That, I guess it disintegrates, it's not edible, so therefore it's enam ne'achalim. Okay? And in that case, nimsa, it turns out, nigmara malachtan. As soon as I pick it, in order to replant it, that's gemar melacha. V'asur linat'am ad she'aser. And I cannot replant it, even if I don't want to eat it. And I guess that's what it says. I can't replant it until I take off maasrot from those radishes or turnips. Or we'll see onions or all those other plants, similar garden vegetables that are replanted for seed. Okay? New halacha. Bitzalim, let's say I took onions, and when the way I store them, I take the onions and I store them in my aliyah, in my aliyat gag, in my loft. And of course, we know if anybody's seen onions and you leave them for a long time, they begin to grow. So these onions, mishi shrishu ba'aliyah, they rooted in the aliyah. So they took root. They started to regrow. Because, there's dirt in the aliyah. It's not like our lofts where it's like clean floor. They had dirt. They left them, that's what they would do. And so the onions, they grew. So the question is now, are they considered now replanted? Or are they considered like onions, and therefore there are a lot of different halachot, as we'll soon see, that are relevant to this. So the Mishnah says, in this case, taharu militameh. We know that if I have an onion, I take an onion and it gets wet and it's now considered mukhshar lekabel tumah and it becomes tamei. Now if I have a tamei onion and I replant it, it becomes tahor because it's mechubar lekarka. Says the Bartanura, kizru idam, it's as if you planted them. The Torah included replanted vegetables in tahara. Dichtiv al koz, it says, al kol zera zerua asher yizarea tahorhu. Anything that's planted can become tahor. So if I take an onion, cut it up, and I replant it, that onion is now tahor. Ava. So for the issue of tahara, of tuma, if it replanted in the aliyah, then it becomes tahor. Then it's considered connected. The Bartanura adds, aval shar kol mile. But for other halachot, kitlushim damu, it's considered talush. It's considered still disconnected. It's not planted. Therefore, for what? And it's in its original chazaka for maaser and shvit. I'll explain. I made you a little chart. So we said, bitzalim sheishu yishu ba'aliyah, for the union of tuma, for the halacha of tuma and tahara, it's mechubar. It's considered mechubar, and therefore it's tahor. For maaser, so I took off maasrot. Now, if I replant it, and then you'll say, if it's considered reconnected, then if I pull it again, I have to retake the maaser. No. For maaser, if it's in the aliyah, it's ketalush, and it's bechazkatam. Once I took off maasrot, if I took off maasrot, it's considered meusar. Similarly for shvi'i, let's say I pulled it up, and I put it in the aliyah during the 6th year. And I put it in the aliyah, and then it re-rooted in my aliyah, in my loft. Still, it's considered telushim, and therefore it's 6-year plants and not 7th-year plants. And the same thing is true for Shabbat. Says a halacha that if I have a plant in the ground, I'm not allowed to pull it out. That's an isur halacha. It's a dioraita. So if I go up to the aliyah and I want to eat my onion and I want to take my onions because I want to put onions on my herring to serve to my shiur, and I found out that it's rooted. Can I pull it up or not? So halacha is michachila. Of course you can't. But if you do it, it's considered patur. You were not violating isur dioraita. So that's all b'tzalim sheishu ba'aliyah. But new halacha. The house caved in, or a mapolet fell on them. The wall caved in, but so a mapolet fell on them. It buried them. But v'hem migulim. Bartanura says the alim shalem, the leaves are migulim. Kidar gililatam. So therefore, it's took root in the aliyah. The wall caved in, and so now it's open to the sky. And migulim, the leaves are or not open to the sky. The leaves are now visible. Then it's the tuim. That's like it's planted in the field. Now we start over. So once nafle ale mapolet nituim. So as we said, the same thing is true for the same rule is true for tahara. It's tahor, as we said before. It's kinituim. It's planted. But for maaser, it's like replanted. Now you have to take off maaser. And for shvi'ir, it's like it's replanted. So now if it fell, the mapolet fell in the 7th year, it's not considered hefker. And also for Shabbat, it's kinituim basadeh. Hatolesh b'Shabbat. If you then uproot it on Shabbat, that's a chiyuv d'oraita. It's like you pull the plant on Shabbat itself, and that's an issur d'oraita. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, feel free to contact me at arspoto@gmail.com, and we'll dedicate this learning to the memory of my father, of Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.